world. Hello, human beings, beloved family of light out there. We're so delighted to be with you today. It is Tuesday, the 19th of January, or Popcorn Day, annual Popcorn Day, as they say in America. And we have our beloved friends from all over the world. Miguel is joining us today, Laura, Nina, and Tara. And so we have a great conversation that we're going to share with you today. We're going to talk about a lot of the really, really good stuff that's going on. And Nina's going to introduce Miguel to you. But before we begin, let's get into our heart space. Focus your attention on the area of your heart, imagining that the breath is flowing in and out of your heart space, breathing in and out a little slower and deeper than usual. And let's activate a feeling of gratitude, appreciation, or care for self and everyone around you, everyone out there. And let's just hold that for a few breaths. Bring it back. Now that we are all beautifully nestled in our hearts, we can share honestly and openly. And I received a note this week from Circle of Light, who I signed up for, because I do love to bombard myself with positive messages of love. And it said the following with respect to asking for guidance. Make the shift from seeing yourself as a person reaching for guidance from above to seeing and feeling the vortex of your heart open, expansive, alive, until you become immersed in the communion of life that is your continual birth into something alive and brand new, the rebirth in the spirit spoken of by Yeshua that is available to all of us now. I just wanted to share that. So if you're looking for guidance, go to the heart space. That's why we start these talks with this. And the last thing I want to share before I hand it over to Nina is that the breath can control the mind, the waves of the mind. If you are stressed and feeling anxiety, go to the heart space and take a couple of big, deep belly breaths, just like a baby. Because when you breathe like a baby, you cannot be stressed. The mind is calm. And with that said, Nina, would you please kick us off with introductions of our friend Miguel? Thank you so much.
I would love to. So this is our beautiful galactic angelic brother, Miguel, that I was divinely introduced to in Sedona recently. And he is just an amazing freedom fighter, lover. He speaks a lot of truth. He has a lot of personal experiences working on the border. He knows a lot about what's been going on at the border. He's a PA, so he knows a lot about the metals that are being attempted to be put in our bodies to change our auric fields and our frequencies. He knows a lot about detox. And he is a very highly connected man to Christ consciousness. So everything in me just said we need to have him on. And I'm just so thrilled that he's here with us today. So Miguel, please take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina, and to all of you lovely ladies and divine beings. I'm so honored and grateful to be on here. Like Nina said, I am guided by Christ and the light, and I am focused on putting out truth and following the truth and sharing this information as much as possible. The bug was not the start for me. I have been fighting this fight probably since I turned 18, if not before then. So about 20 years. I've worked in healthcare for about 15 years now as a physician assistant for 6 years. But I've worked in many different aspects of healthcare, from administration to pharmaceutical rep, and many different specialties of medicine. And in my career as a PA, I worked in cardiology, primarily in the hospital setting and outside the hospital. So I was in the emergency room, the ICU, the normal floor, and learned quite a lot there in the hospitals. I've worked also in internal and family medicine with children, and a few years up until recently, I was working with the Border Patrol as a medical provider, as a contractor. And so we were focused on screening and taking care of the immigrants that are now detained by DHS. And so I worked all across the border from Yuma, Arizona, all the way to Brownsville, Texas, which is close to where I live. Right now, I'm in South Texas, and I live very close to the border here in McAllen, in the McAllen area. And I've studied biology, and as an undergrad, I was actually trying to get more into clinical research. A lot of my classes were geared for research, genetics, evolution, developmental biology, basically looking at things from the cellular aspect, from the sperm and the egg until the child is born. So I've definitely have studied in many different areas of biology and medicine, and now we find ourselves in these amazing times that I felt even more of a calling to really get the truth out, not just in health wise, but spiritually, and just in general knowledge, right? What's kind of going on, the many lies that we're led to believe are true. Right before the bug hit, we were in the Border Patrol. They let us know before the media knew that, hey, there's something going on in China. They told us this is classified information. We're not allowed to talk about it. Like many things that may happen, we'll first hear about it. They were prepping us to just be aware that since we're in one of the most busiest border crossings in the United States, that we need to keep an eye out on immigrants coming in, showing just at that time it was only three basic criteria for us to try to mitigate the spread of any further diseases, which is our primary role there, but as well as taking care of patients in the meantime while they stay there. And I would say around 2019 is I started to get downloads, if you want to say. I felt like Christ was talking to me. I felt like I needed to be closer to God and Jesus and the light. And I started having a lot of things happening in my life, metaphysically, physically, spiritually, and a lot of events occurred to now I'm here, and I'm so blessed to be here with all of you and to share my experiences and whatever knowledge I can help put out there in the ether so we can all overcome this together.
Thank you for that, Miguel. Well, I think we're going to hear, so you are hearing this in October of 19. I think we're about to hear that the United States is actually being blackmailed.
Miguel, I would love for you to share about how a lot of these divine experiences that you have had have also reached the children that were coming over the border, who would find you and be like the confirmation of what God was speaking to you. You also started having visions of things that you didn't have necessarily physical proof of that were happening, but you were seeing them in your inner eyes, and then having these confirmations from things that children were sharing with you. anything like that you would like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so being a lot of people don't know or understand exactly how the process works with Border Patrol and apprehending and detaining and then releasing or whatever, wherever they're going. Partly because it's hidden, and right now there's just so many lies on what's happening. But when I started working there, I literally came in with the mentality of what perhaps most of the population believes, and thinking that there's not really, a problem. Because me living here in the valley, that's what we call this area of Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. You may not feel or see, hundreds or thousands of people just walking, across the streets. And so you may think that there's not a problem, but in actuality, it's all being facilitated by the federal government. And the more, I would say within 2 weeks of working behind the scenes, because I had to get secret clearance. We have to go through a very thorough background check, the most thorough background check I've ever had to do. And I was, as a contractor, you work under secret clearance level. We're just one level below a federal agent by just one test, which is doing a polygraph. That was the only thing that I needed to do in order to technically become like a federal agent. Oh. And so, from the very beginning, I knew that the things that I was accustomed to hearing was not the truth. It was not the things that you would expect any agency in this country to tell you, what is going on, because it is a danger what is happening here in our borders. And, I just wanted to show you all just a quick video that a lot of people don't, they don't come across some of these videos or pictures of things that happen here in Texas. So here's a video that was shared to me. There's some agents that this was literally from the cartels or the people that are bringing, helping the people come in through the border. So literally, they videotape this for many reasons, but primarily is also for people to see the faces of the immigrants coming, because they will blackmail them, or they'll know where they are on their journey until they get here. So this is literally here in the Texas border at the Rio Grande River. So if you look there are thousands of, you'll see it's about 1,000 people standing on Mexico side. This is a video. So the gentleman that is recording is on the U.S. side, and he has two partners. One guy is on the Mexico side, who's basically collecting the money. Then there's a gentleman that you see right there with the oar, and he's bringing over people on a raft. Right? And so they just move. It's a very slow process because they have the time to do this. There's primarily women and children here, and this was recorded back at the very beginning of 2021.
¿Buen camisa, señor? ¿Buen camisa? ¿A la que trae arriba? Do you ever hook those guys up? Yeah. Yeah. 26s. Hola, ¿cómo está?
So that's probably good. Just I'm just thinking about privacy issues with the video and stuff. So basically when you've been working, you have first-hand knowledge and understanding that these traffickers are being funded and placed and facilitated by design.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And so, for instance, in that scenario, what will happen is that, I mean, literally later in the video, there's a pan out where you can see that there's like 1,000 or more people just up on the riverbank, and you know, who knows how many more people are there. And this could be 15 different sections of just maybe 100 mile of the river. And so what they will do, the cartels plan this, and I wouldn't even say it's just the cartels. I mean, at this point, it's the Mexican government, even the US government, and just your typical lay person that lives across the border. The cartels will specifically, what they'll do is in sections like this, where it's like a slow process, it's in the middle of the day, they'll allow hundreds, if not thousands of people to come through. So once the US agencies see, okay, either through a camera or through a person or someone calling or infrared lights with the helicopters, if they see, okay, we have a big group of people, for that many people, you have to bring many agents. And so like half your resources that are on the field at the moment get sucked into that area to start to grab everybody, process them, and get them into the detention centers. So when that influx happens, everyone gets to that one area, it opens all these pockets. And when those pockets open, that's where the real criminals, the terrorists, the drugs, the children that are specific for, you know, they're already been bought and sold. And so they need to be, you know, that's their precious cargo. These people, they've already made money off of them. So they don't really care what ends up happening to them, but it's a decoy to get all the resources to one area.
What's really interesting about what you're sharing is actually last night on Tucker. I like Tucker. I watch only an hour of Tucker a day, but they were talking there about even the prime minister or the president of Panama was saying that this is hurting his country as well, because these people, he's never seen people come from Somalia, from Afghanistan, from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Argentina. So the question is, of course, this has to be orchestrated. Somebody is paying for the flights.
Yeah.
Somebody is funding that. And we know who that is. I believe the name starts with an S and ends with an S.
Absolutely.
And a couple of letters. Okay, so
yes,
perhaps you could share, as Nina was saying, some of the downloads you got, the divine intervention, the Christ information that you're being gifted, and then how these children found you while you were at the border.
Absolutely. Yes, and I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to veer off topic. I just wanted to give the audience so they could see.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of times there, you can't see that there might be groups of only children. I've had children as young, actually, when I first started working there on the US border, there was a 3-month-old just left in the forest, just left there, 3-month-old in a car seat, right? You'll get 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds that have been traveling for either weeks or months alone. And they come here, and unfortunately, the way the system is set up, it's not to, adhere to the emotional aspect that they're going through. And it's not meant to, and it's very hard for that to happen. People on the Border Patrol, they talk bad about them, but in actuality, you know, if you put any human being in that situation, how can you not feel for a 4-year-old child that is crying, right? They don't know what's going on. It's not their fault. And so the agents, they're very nice. They get, most of these immigrants, when they come through, they feel the love, they feel the presence of just another human, that they're not trying to put any shame on them, but that, you know, the whole process in itself is not good. And so I'm a pretty good provider. I work very quickly and very thoroughly. And so I was always placed at some of the worst places. And so we would literally see, and at this point, it really doesn't matter where you're at. It's some of the worst places. So we're getting anywhere from, 200 to 1,000 children in one day. And in my journey, I've realized more and more, that we all fight, everyone's fighting, everyone's worried, and for, for some people, right reason, and for others, maybe not, but we're focused on all of this fog, but no one, for whatever reason, doesn't focus on the children and what is going on with the children. And so for me, I kept having visions and having dreams that I didn't know how to explain, where I felt called that I needed to help the children, and in whatever way I could. And so even before getting more information from other people in the spiritual sense or in healing sense, I felt something coming over me and a kind of my own inner voice telling me what I needed to do. And so I kept getting, from the very beginning, I kept getting children. In fact, within the first month that I was there, there was I'll never forget this case. A child was about to be let go into the U.S. with his mother, his father, and an uncle. And this was in Arizona. They were about to be let go. And I'm not sure what it is. When I'm around people, I kind of activate them too. And so there was a lady who, she felt my presence, and she could tell that I wanted to put more emphasis on what's going on, not just, put a Band-Aid and move on to the next. So she felt something with this 7-year-old boy, and she came to me and she said, I really need you to see this child. I have a feeling that there's something really bad going on here. And so she made a big deal. Border Patrol stopped everything. So I went and I checked it out, and I saw the child. As soon as I saw the child, I've also taken classes for sex trafficking, and I see this child, and immediately I knew in myself, I said, no, there's something very, very dark here. After an hour and a half of talking with the child, it ends up his father and uncle and mother allowing it have been sodomizing him, doing all these sexually explicit things to him for years. And here, the U.S. government is about to allow these criminals to be released into our public domain without any kind of background checks, without any looking into the child to see what's going on. The child clearly did not want to go with his parents. And so once I saw, I made a big stink, and I said, no, this can't happen. So luckily, they stopped the family. The father was basically going to be, arrested until more investigation was going to occur. But it was 100%, right? And so, there's so many stories that I could tell just like that make people cry. I mean, literally, when I would train providers to come in, I'd like to give them just a little taste of what they may deal with, because it is very hard on the heart. It's very hard for your emotions when you don't have the time to sit there and explain these things to a family or a child or people, but you have to do it in a fashion to allow the system to continue to process more people. So it's very unfair for everybody. So I kept finding myself in these situations where children would literally come and sit in front of me without me even calling them. And at times, at the very beginning, I'm a very nice guy, but I like order. I like there to be process, especially when you have thousands and hundreds of kids everywhere. If there's no order, it's just more chaos. And so at times I would kind of tell children, like, whoa, hey, I didn't ask you to come into the office or whatever, please have a seat before, come in, let me call you. And even though I wasn't rude, I could sense that the children would, it's almost as if I slapped them or something. And so I started to pick up on these energies, and I realized that something was telling the children to come to me, because like in life, you can have a great grocery packer that's going to pack your groceries perfectly great in a way that you're not going to ruin your bread, your eggs, or whatever. Or you can have someone that just stuffs it all in there, and here you go. And then you go home and your bread's flat, and your eggs are cracked and whatnot. So, a lot of providers don't spend the time to talk about these things with children or see what's going on. And for me, I didn't, it got to the point where, as I'm listening to this inner my inner voice and I'm seeing these visions and I start to actually act upon it, that this starts happening more and more, that I'm just presented with a child, at any age from 4 to 17, where I don't even have to ask them. I just know. And I start leading them into a conversation and immediately tears start coming out. Their bodies start to shake. And so I felt called very early on to start with my hands, right? To draw these energies from them and to release them. And I had countless of encounters where, again, they just are called to me and they will sit right next to me and they'll tell me that they're seeing spirits and they're seeing entities around them right there as we speak. And that, for instance, I had one girl that her grandmother came to her while she was almost about to be raped in the forest, coming, in the brush. And since that moment, she was following her to this detention center, and she kind of disappeared and came to her and she felt kind of ushering her to come speak with me. And the girl was at a brink of committing suicide. And if she would have gone and spoken to any other person there who is traditionally educated in medicine, here's a girl who is suicidal. She's seeing spirits, or her grandmother who's talking to her to make her basically, keep moving, go in this direction. And the grandmother is next to me, but she feels comforting there, right? They would have sent her to a psych ward, right? They would have said this girl is crazy. But I felt what she was telling me, and I knew from my personal experiences, this was nothing negative. This was just a spiritual presence, that more people have instances like this. They're just scared to talk about it because unfortunately now the stigma is you might be crazy. And so I had found myself it was almost, multiple times a day. If not, it was basically to a point, it was daily, just daily, if not, 16 of these type of instances where these children come, they when I start to dive in more, they're telling me that they're seeing these negative spirits. These negative entities are telling them to kill themselves, that these negative entities are telling them it's okay for this man to touch you, or for this woman to touch you in this way. And they know it's wrong, but how can they differentiate when they're 7, 9, 4, and it's in their head, right? And so I have to reaffirm them. This is not okay. That's not you. And I would start giving them practices, right? Mantras to say, prayers to say. Sometimes I would just be there in prayer with them. Most of the Hispanics coming through are, they believe in Christ, right? And I do feel that all of this is happening for a reason. That God is saving these children, because what is happening over there is atrocious. And in Guatemala, which is one of the I would say sacred countries that has stayed as close as possible to their ancient cultural way of life, it is becoming more and more sexualized in a way of incest that I've never seen in my life. And it's in these areas that the more I talk to the people from there, I speak very fluently in Spanish. And so people may not know that I'm American. And so they'll trust me more. And I get very in depth into these conversations with them. And of course, in all of these areas, there's witchcraft now that was never present. And, these sacrifices and taking the children and these sacrificial type of ceremonies that are happening, that the people themselves that are doing it, young, old, sometimes they don't even realize something is possessing them to do these things. Yes. Sorry.
I just think that would be a good pause to kind of allow, I think Laura's leaning forward. I think, no, you don't want to make a comment, Laura. Come on, you got to say something. Join us.
I'm listening. Yeah.
So since we're on this pause, so I'm trying to just kind of lead into basically what happened with my child. And I'll show, because I would like to see your all's reaction, because it is something very beautiful. It's a miracle in my life. So, if that's okay, I know we don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but I was literally about to start transitioning into what has now happened in my life.
Absolutely. No, Miguel, you're wonderful. And yeah, please do continue with the beautiful blessing, because I think the point we're hearing here is, if we can't take care of the children, if we can't, as the adults, make sure that the children are safe, what the hell are we doing here?
What the hell are we doing?
What the hell are we doing?
So I just wanted to do
Yeah.
one more example of a beautiful girl that changed my life, and then I'll go into what happened with me. Is that okay?
Beautiful. Please do. Yeah.
Okay. So this was happening to me on a daily basis, and it was so obvious that the children would walk into our little unit, which was somewhat like a clinic, and they would walk in, they would look at the different providers, and just innately the children would not want, they would hesitate. As soon as we would make eye contact, they were focused, and they would want to come to me. The ones that needed this inner healing. And the more I trusted this instinct in me, just right now I'm getting full body chills, the more dark the issues became. And one of the last ones that happened to me that I broke down. I have dealt with so much death in my life. Even before I was a medical professional, I dealt with death personally, trying to save people's lives. I've seen things in Colombia, where my family's from, and then in the hospital setting, and then with the Border Patrol. The stories I've heard and come across is just, it makes people want to vomit. So I have a pretty strong presence with that, because I accept it. I'm not scared of the dark presence. They're scared of me, which is why I feel the people come to me, because I just blast them away, and they feel better. Parents, kids, after the tears of happiness come out, they're like, "Can I go with you? I want to be with you." And, I just try to give them whatever I can to arm them so that they can be on their way, because it's a learning process for all. But this one moment where, man, I was having such a rough day, and we had just finished going through like 300 kids from like six. You walk in at 6 a.m. and there's already just lines of children that need to be seen, and pregnant females. And so, we're just going as fast as we can, and I'm trying to heal and suck out energies and put in light, and suck out energies and put in light. And we were finally done. And that day it was only myself and another provider, so it was exhausting. I had a lot of things going on, and I was giving up. I wasn't giving up, but on that day, I typically try to put my best, persona in the front, so that people don't deal with my emotions that I'm dealing with in life. But that day I was like, I don't want to see anyone anymore. And some of the staff, they could see that I was not in the mood, and I was just like, let me be, please. I need to focus on some things. If anyone needs to be seen, just tell them to wait right now. And sure enough, like within 10 minutes, they come, an agent comes over, and they're like, hey, we really need you to see this, a girl, that she was caught on the river alone, which is, it's somewhat rare to see younger children caught completely alone. And so a lot of times working in this environment, it's very hard, because you get two things. Either you get people that come in saying, I'm dying, they're totally exaggerating, and you think something's happening, you evaluate them, you check them out, you do everything, and they're perfectly fine. You're not dying, you're fine, you're hyperventilating, here's some water, please move on. Or you get the people coming in, I'm perfectly okay. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm okay. And this is the person that has a laceration that's hidden, or they were raped, or they have a broken bone and they're not saying anything, or they're really, borderline about to be in an emergency room. And so you really have to know and what situation you're in. And I've had a lot of experience. So for me, it's fairly easy. For some providers, they totally miss it. That kid ends up in the hospital within 48 hours. And so a lot of times we get our young females coming in saying that they're pregnant when they're not pregnant, because they take advantage of the system so that they can be squeezed in and just released into the public. And technically, the Border Patrol cannot just do a pregnancy test on them to see if they're pregnant, because that would be quote unquote discrimination. So they told me, look, there's a 12-year-old, she's coming in and we really need you to see her because she's saying that she may have been raped or whatnot. So my knee-jerk reaction was just, it's probably not true, because I've had a few females that we did that and ended up being that they were not pregnant. And so I always try, and more every day, right, not to judge. Don't judge a person. Just take everybody as a brand new case. You don't know what's going on. And even if it's a lie, then why are they lying to you? And so this was just a big eye opener for me in that regard, because, they tell me, okay, the girl. And so another staff came in and said, hey, Miguel, because they know how I work, that some of my staff, they knew I take it to another level. And especially people connected with Christ, they come to me and they're like, Miguel, no, like this is a Miguel patient. You need to see her. And so something came over me and I said, okay. And I said, Miguel, don't put your judgment, just put it aside. I stand up, and as soon as I walk out the door, this presence of this 12-year-old Guatemalan girl just, she comes into the doors. I could just see immediately something was wrong, and I could see the abuse, and I could see that no one was going to help her like me. And so immediately I walk over to her and I touch her, and she just looks right at me, and I could feel her presence. And I said, come on, let's go talk. And I already knew what had happened, but I wanted to softly bring her into something to open up, but not go too deep where I can't give her enough treatment here. And so it ended up being that this girl was living with somewhat of a step parent. Her mother had given her away, and then her mother passed away, and was very neglected by her own mother. Her father, which was the only person that truly cared and loved for her, left when she was about 5, and was sending her money from the United States so that she could live with one of her siblings and her step siblings. And so she was alone in the sense that she had no true blood relative. Her only other sibling was a half sibling, so the mother cared more for that child than for her. And this mother was abusive to her, but she had all the scars to demonstrate this that were very clearly identified by myself. And so we get into a story, and basically I knew there was something she needed to get out of her heart and off of her chest. And I slowly walked into this story with her, and she had been kidnapped by the cartel about 3 or 4 months prior, or actually more than that. But she was kidnapped and held, basically ransomed, for over a month, where she was sexually abused over and over and over again. And I don't want to get into the details, but it was horrific. And for whatever reason, even before she was telling me, I was already seeing and depicting this in, just like if I was daydreaming. And so I knew to be very cautious, but I knew that she needed to say something. This girl, and here I go, full body chills again. She started to speak to me as if like Mother Magdalene was in her. And this 12-year-old girl was speaking more truth and more knowledge to me than an adult has ever in my life. And here's a girl that should have said, I don't want to have this baby, just like many here in the United States that say, I was raped, I don't want to have this baby. And this girl made me cry so hard because she was explaining in as if she was speaking through scripture that Mary and God told her, you are blessed with this joy and this life in you. Take care of it. You will become a powerful mother and you will nurture her in everything that you lacked in. You will now have it with this child. And she, we spoke for about 2 hours and everybody wanted me to, okay, let's get her going. Like, okay, Miguel, stop the conversation. And I was like, stop, leave me alone. I need to talk to this girl. And just the whole story was so soul invoking. And we prayed very hard and she felt an immense joy. And she literally told me, Miguel, I know I've only told this to 2 people and both these people were named Miguel. And she said, before I walked in, God told me that an angel was going to come talk to me. And she's like, I don't know if you're an angel, but after speaking with you, I feel that this is what God wanted me to do. And Mary was telling me that I was going to be protected. She left Guatemala by herself and traveled for over a month all through Mexico by herself and was untouched. She didn't eat for 2 weeks, didn't have water for a week. And she somehow ends up in my hands. And I was able, to make her feel so much better. We were able to communicate with her father. Her father had no idea what was going on, that she was even here. And she was so fearful till she didn't even want to let her dad know what had happened because she thought her father was going to hate her for, that it was somehow her fault what had happened, which is the typical thing for all children, right? And luckily I was able to speak with the father and give him a heads up so that way when she were to get to him, it was just love and care from there on. It was already known. And so, these beautiful things happen to me. And then in my life, right, here I am thinking, man, if people really started hearing what's going on in my life without me being able to truly understand and explain it, they may think that I'm, losing my marbles, but I am getting closer to my spiritual side and with the power that is around all of us. And so unfortunately, my ex girlfriend from many, many years, who we have a child with, that was the dividing factor, right? I started saying, I want to teach my kid more about God and the presence of God at around the age of 2. And I said, we need to pray more. We need to become more with the Spirit. And that was like a no for her. And so immediately that was a big rift in our eventual divide. And back in January of 2021, we were very close to trying to mediate some of our indifferences, but it didn't occur. And then this thing happened, where now I was becoming way more empowered in what I was doing. Now I'm trying to bring it with my child because he was telling me, I could feel this connection with him. And so one day, his mother texts me. She's in the car with him and he's in his car seat. And he was 3 at this time. And he's looking out the window around 2:30 in the afternoon. And he starts telling his mother, Mommy, Mommy, pointing out the window in Spanish, saying, Dios, Dios, big. He speaks Spanglish. So he's like, Dios, Dios, big, like God, big, right? And he starts depicting the colors of the rainbow. And he starts repeating the colors of the rainbow. And so his mother's like, what are you talking about? Dios, big. looking at the sky and saying the colors of the rainbow. So she doesn't understand what's going on. She keeps kind of trying to get him to explain himself, but he starts to get frustrated with her, and he's getting like angry, like, no, Dios, big. And again, saying the colors of rainbows. He ends up saying this 7 times to her. Okay. So then she ends up texting me, hey, why is Santiago saying this in the car? So